welcome back to the Trust Your Worth podcast, the podcast that helps you tap in to the power of knowing your worth. My name is Brittany, and thanks so much for joining me today on the pod. Oh my gosh, how are you? I hope you're doing fantastic, and I'm just so excited for this episode. But before we get into it, last week I talked about the evidence of worth and how you can leave it for yourself when you need reminders or just ways you can recognize your worth. So if you want to know more about that, that is season 3, episode 20, Evidence of Worth. Today, we are talking about an incredible book. It is called The Will to Change Men, Masculinity, and Love by Bell Hooks. And I can't wait for you to learn more about it. And so let's get into it on today's episode. This book is absolutely incredible, and I believe that it should be a required reading for absolutely everybody. Because the things that it talks about are what we all deal with, especially in Western culture, or if you grew up in a religious environment, like this will hit home very quickly. But basically, it's about how the system of patriarchy is hurting us all. I think men also suffer from it. Just, it's harder to see the pains that come from it if you aren't a male. And also that society these days, it feels like it's an us versus them sort of thing. Like, and I've had these ideas too. Like, I've grown up being afraid of men, and I've also had the thoughts of like, oh, my life is just easier without men, and if I just cut them out of my life, like my life is way easier, and that men need to figure out how to help themselves, which I think is partially true, but there is a role that women play within the patriarchal system that we can change, and that I plan to change now that I know more of what I know. But let me get into the definition of patriarchy. So I am just going to quote it because it's better that way. I won't mess up this definition. Okay, so quote, patriarchy is a political social system that insists that males are inherently dominating, superior to everything and everyone deemed weak, especially females, and endowed with the right to dominate and rule over the weak, and to maintain that dominance through various forms of psychological terrorism and violence. Close quote. So that is not a pleasant definition, but I have seen this system throughout my life. I have been around abuse. I have been emotionally abused. So I understand how the system has hurt me and my family in a lot of ways. And it's not their fault, it's the system's fault. And that is what is helping me to not be so afraid of men anymore, and why I appreciated this book so much, because we need to fight the system and not the people. And men and women support the system of patriarchy. If we didn't support the system, then we would have eradicated it years ago. But because it is so systemic in our society, as in like, even if I were to teach my family, my future family, if I ever have kids, if I have boys, if I teach them to have a different form of masculinity, which we'll get into later, but even if I taught them and I sent them out into this world, they would be shamed into the system or beaten into it. The example Belle gives is this young boy who loves playing with Barbies, and he is so excited to share his favorite toys with his friends from school. They come over and he's like, this is my favorite one. This is what I love to do with my Barbies. And the boys look at him and he knows immediately that he should not be doing this. And they make fun of him for playing with Barbies. And the toy that he loved, he could love no longer. He never played with them again. And that is devastating to me, that this young boy lost something he loved that day and learned forevermore that if he were to be accepted in this patriarchal system, that he would have to sacrifice bits of his soul and maybe even all of it, in order to fit in order to be perceived as man enough. And that is devastating. That the cost of this system is the souls of boys and boyhood. Oh, that makes me I'm devastated by that. I'm emotional about it. And also that violence permeates the system like a plague. We cannot escape violence if we are stuck in a patriarchal system. And women especially, every day we hear about violence against women, about femicide. Even if you taught your boys to not adhere to the gendered roles that society has mapped out for most men in your home, and they went out into the world, they would quickly be shamed or guilted or violently taught that they cannot be those things out in patriarchal society. Like, unfortunately, violence is a key proponent of this patriarchal system. That is why so many women suffer, so many children too experience neglect, actual physical abuse, but most times they're neglected within this system. So let's get into a little bit about that. So also too, like, we cannot place the blame of this perpetual cycle of sexism solely on men, because as women, a part of the system, maybe you unknowingly perpetuate it, and sometimes you knowingly do. We just continue the system. For example, if you saw two men and one of them was muscular and like super fit and had like a Porsche, let's say, and then next to him you saw a thinner man who happens to drive a Volkswagen Beetle, like, which of the two would you think were more manly, and who would protect you more? Unconsciously, you're going to think the man who is bigger, because physically he is dominant. He could probably hurt the other man very easily, but we don't know. Maybe the other man is trained in martial arts. So we see these ideas just like firmly supplanted within media and within all over the place. Like, once you read this book, you're going to see it, patriarchy freaking everywhere. So this system also teaches men that the only way acceptable emotion that they are allowed to have and express is anger. And it comes out in violence, but in a patriarchal home, violence is allowed only in certain circumstances. So if a child disobeys, the father is allowed to be violent to get them to back in line and to listen. Belle gives an example of her, in her own life, where her and her brother played marbles, and she was better at her brother with the marbles, but their father saw marbles, this was in the 50s, saw marbles as a man's game and something that his son should be good at. And because his son didn't really care and was very passive about it, and Belle herself wanted to win and competitive and aggressive and was beating her brother, the father had to stop that because he did not want his son to be weak. So he ended up breaking a board off of something and hitting Belle with it. And the whole family never forgot it. And the mother told Belle, "Oh, I tried to warn you, like, this was going to happen if you continue to not listen to your father." And the mother should have protected Belle from the father acting out in violence, because abuse in any form should not be tolerated. But that is the problem with the patriarchal system, is that women who agree or ingrained within the system allow abuses to happen because, as Belle puts it, her mother saw it as her husband's God-given right to dominate, to discipline by any means necessary. And of course, we can see how hurtful that is. I've seen it within my own life, where I felt like I should have been protected and wasn't. And it just makes me so sad, because I can see how it was just them being a product of this horrible system that we all live in. And I have suffered the consequences. We all have. Like, there's so much hurt going around. And it just made me so sad. And a lot of it was because again, men are taught to do this. And it's so frustrating because they aren't given the tools. And that's the other thing that was really eye-opening to me in this book, is how men struggle with being emotionally present and emotionally intelligent because they literally were not taught how. And it didn't cross my mind that there was another way, or that men just were not given the proper tools in order to connect, in order to emotionally express themselves without anger. So, of course, how can you succeed in a relationship if you were never taught how to be successful? If you didn't have a good example, or you grew up in this patriarchal system, of course you will not have the tools to connect, which is devastating because men want to love, men want to connect. They want to be there for their partners, but if you were never taught how, then what are you supposed to do? So the first step is acknowledging that, oh, wait, maybe I don't have the tools, and men will have to go out and learn them. This is a big reason why women are choosing not to date, is because men were not given the proper tools to be a partner. They were taught how to be a head of the household, that their worth only resides in if they could provide for that household and if they could protect that household. So if we take those away, then now men have no value, and that's what patriarchy teaches. But feminist masculinity teaches that men inherently have worth just because they exist, and if they were to affirm that and to really understand that they were worthy, even if they're not providing or able to physically protect you, they still have worth. There are many men in my life who I love, and I don't see them as my protectors. I can protect myself. I've been single forever. I can provide for myself. So the men that I do choose to have in my life are people I love and people who bring me joy and who I connect with. And I see their inherent worth and value, and I just get so sad thinking that the system of patriarchy has caused them to be performative at times, because if they want to be cool or be accepted by males in our society, then they have to kill off parts of themselves. Belle talks about boys giving up their very souls in order to fit into this patriarchal system. She talks about her brother and how he was so kind and emotional, and those were qualities that men were not supposed to have. So he had to perform. He had to put his nature, the natural way he wanted to be, to the wayside in order to get anywhere within the patriarchal society, which is just devastating because women are taught to be true to you, be who you are. You're allowed to cry when things are hard. It's okay to cry. It's okay to talk about your feelings. And I know I have zoned out when men are trying to tell me their feelings, and that is something I want to change moving forward after reading this book, because men don't really have a lot of places to express themselves emotionally. And it's very hard for them to, because when they do, they are kind of met with contempt, or some women even see them as less masculine for them just saying how they truly feel or crying or whatnot. So if you feel any of those tendencies, that you're getting annoyed with men for just saying how they feel and whatnot without judgment, and that's the part that's hard for me, is that I'm judging them because I get mad at men because I'm like, you should know this, but I have to recognize that maybe they just were never taught. So some of the places that we see men thriving and able to express their emotions and find their true selves again are actually in AA meetings, in the addiction recovery programs, is the only safe space they've been able to find to really tell the truth about what they're feeling and why they got addicted to things. Churches are another place where men are allowed to be emotional, I put that in air quotes, and can cry freely without judgment. So really important that when we let men feel their feelings and express them, meet them with kindness when men are expressing their true feelings, because it's very hard for them to do, especially if they grew up in a patriarchal environment. Okay, the book also goes through how we expect men to be aggressive, so they do the phrase that boys will be boys. And again, that anger is the only acceptable emotion. I was literally watching a TV show on Prime. Oh my gosh, what's it called? The show Every Year After. It just came out, and this isn't a spoiler, but the boys, there's two brothers, and instead of talking, like one of the brothers is mad at the others, and he immediately goes and they start fighting on the deck, and then they both end up in the water, like almost hurting themselves, instead of using their words and talking. So when I tell you, your eyes are going to be open to how a patriarchy affects us all and how it teaches men to be aggressive and that's why they do it, then you're just going to see it everywhere. But Bell goes on to say that we can change this expectation. Instead of expecting men to be aggressive, maybe we can expect them to connect and to use their words or to cry, like have different expectations for them and be happily surprised if they meet them. And if they don't and the abuse continues, like do not tolerate abuse and get out of there. Like abuse cannot equal love. If there is abuse involved, that's not love. It's not true love. You have to get out if abuse is happening because you don't deserve to be abused. No one does. And if you are struggling with trying to get out of an abusive relationship, I hope that you do and that you get the help and support that you need to get out of those abusive relationships, because you deserve to be happy. You do. You're worthy of happiness and of true love that does not include abuse. Okay, she talks about different modes of feminism and like kind of the arguments that feminists have and where they went wrong, and sort of comes up with her own definition of feminist masculinity, which I think is like the solution to the domination model of patriarchy. So there's a couple quotes I want to share directly because these are the solutions to overcome the system of patriarchy, the solutions to help men to change. So if you are a man listening to these are some things you can do. Okay, so in the book, if you're reading this is near the end, like starting from page 170, kind of the last chapter, it starts to go into solutions. So, quote, in dominator cultures, most families are not safe places. Dysfunction, intimate terrorism, and violence make them breeding grounds for war. Since we have yet to end patriarchal culture, our struggles to end domination must begin where we live, in the communities we call home. We must be willing to see boyhood differently, not as a time when boys are indoctrinated into manhood, that is about violence and death, but rather as a time when boys learn to glory in the connection with others, in the revelry and joy of intimacy that is the essential human longing. Close quote. So it has to begin in our homes. We can start with the men and boys that we know by teaching them how to connect, by loving them for who they are, as they are, trying not to judge. I know it's hard. We all judge everyone, even our own family, but try to especially listen to them without judgment, to love them, and to just let who they are shine. Let's say your son loves knitting. Embrace it. Be happy that they knit. Even if it's not necessarily a masculine hobby, knitting's cool for everyone. It's a very useful skill, and I wish I had it. But yeah, trying to keep the patriarchal judgment of the ideas of manhood that are problematic out of our homes. And easier said than done, I get it. Especially if you've grown up in that kind of environment. Okay, so here's another quote that I really enjoyed. If boys are raised to be empathetic and strong, autonomous and connected, responsible to self, to family and friends, and to society, able to make community rooted in recognition of interbeing, then the solid foundation is present and they will be able to love. So the key things here, empathetic. If you have a child that is struggling to learn empathy, get them to read books. Fantasy is a great way, but especially seeing boys in books, be kind to others, will help them hopefully see themselves in there. Reading is a great way to learn empathy because you see these characters struggle and you relate to them and you watch them either overcome it or get closer to those who around them who are trying to help them. Strength has so many different definitions, but the strongest people I know aren't physically strong. They get through such hard things, and most of them are women, I won't lie. But strong. We can teach our men to be strong, basically to trust themselves, to know that their worth is inherent, so they can trust that they can overcome things when they are hard, when life gets hard. Autonomous and responsible to self, to me meant like being able to take care of yourself, be like physically and emotionally, and recognizing when you need help and asking for help. So that means like being able to do the dishes, doing your own laundry. There are so many men I've met who, when they left home, were grossly unprepared for living alone or being on their own because they were taken care of their whole time. So teaching boys, especially self-reliance, I think is an important trait to have if you want them to be successful. So they know how to cook, they know how to clean, they know how to take care of themselves. Responsible to family and friends. So that's being accountable, like learning how to say sorry when they've done wrong, taking care of their family and friends, whether that's just like being there for them and showing up for them. And to society, so recognizing that public spaces are for everyone and treating them with respect. I love how in Japan kids clean their schools. It's just part of how the system works, and I think that's so cool that they are so respectful and responsible to each other, to the group as a whole. I think that's really cool. Able to make community, so giving them the tools to make friends and to keep friends and to know what their friends are doing. There's that video, I'm sure many of you have seen, of the guy who is like, oh yeah, when I went through my breakup and had a horrible time, like we just broke up a month ago, what's her name? And his friends in the room could not tell him the name of his ex-girlfriend, and that was devastatingly sad. So being able to communicate and listen and talk, those are very important skills that will help men especially to have this foundation in order to be able to love. So basically learning how to work with others with respect and kindness, and also loving themselves for who they are on the inside and affirming that. So let me just leave you with one final quote. Okay, quote. To create loving men, we must love males. Loving maleness is different from praising and rewarding males for living up to sexist-defined notions of male identity. Caring about men because of what they do for us is not the same as loving males for simply being. When we love maleness, we extend our love whether males are performing or not. Performance is different from simply being. In patriarchal culture, males are not allowed simply to be who they are and to glory in their unique identity. Their value is always determined by what they do. In an anti-patriarchal culture, males do not have to prove their value and worth. They know from birth that simply being gives them value, the right to be cherished and loved. Close quote. Ooh, I'm getting emotional. I just am devastated that some of you guys have grown up believing that you're only important because of what you do. And that's so sad. If you feel that way, I'm so sorry. No, you are important because you exist. You are important and have the right to be cherished and loved simply because you're here, because you're a human being. And there are so many people who love you just as you are. I hope you are able to find them. And if you haven't yet, I hope you take the steps to find those people who do cherish you for you, who see you, your unique self, and love you for just being you. Whew. So, this book, The Will to Change, absolutely incredible. And that really is the lesson of this, that in order to change, you need to start with the self and knowing your inherent worth, and then adding the elements of emotional intelligence, knowing how to communicate, knowing how to connect. These are all skills that you can learn in order to change. So I hope that you do take the time to read this incredible book, and that if it is challenging to hear the things that you might have unconsciously been doing, I hope it does help you to change maybe how you interact with men especially, and that you move forward with kindness and love and believe that men can change and have. And I hope that you do see how Belle puts so much love into this, and how the overarching theme of this book really is love, and how we can help men especially to feel more loved, to feel more seen, and truly that love can transform. It really can. It's changed me and it's changed so many people, but it just seems to me that love always is the answer. So please go read the book, The Will to Change. That is your work this week, your homework, should you choose to accept it. As always, you can find me at trustyourworth.com or on Instagram and TikTok at trustyourworthpodcast. If no one has told you today, especially you dudes, you have the right to be cherished and loved. You are worthy of it just by simply being you. And don't forget to trust your worth. Okay, thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. Love you. Bye.